One of the most beautiful things about video games is the overwhelming variety you can find in genres, gameplay, studios, stories, and so on. It is safe to say there is always something for everyone, and despite gaming media spending several years now pushing for accessibility, not everyone is going to like the same things. Some genres are going to be their own niche, while other genres get to thrive into a bigger audience, and that is perfectly fine. Death Stranding is the kind of game that is hard to recommend, not because the game itself is bad, but because playing it can become a game of Russian roulette. Either the game is going to click with you and you are going to have one of the best gaming experiences of your life, or you are going to believe it's the most boring and tedious experience. Since I am a self-proclaimed Kojima fanboy and since my taste in gaming has always leaned hard towards liking weird and often unpopular titles, Death Stranding clicked with me on a very personal level. It's a very Kojima game, and it's one that, ironically enough, does the one thing people in the gaming community always beg for from publishers. It tries something different. Now, because this is a Kojima game, unpacking this experience is going to be a little complicated, so let's go step by step, starting by the basics. In Death Stranding, you get to play as Sam Porter Bridges, a delivery man working for the post-apocalyptic United States, where an event called the Death Stranding decimated the country, forcing people to live in isolation as the outside world has become beyond deadly. We follow Sam as he is contracted by the President of the United States of America to go west and connect everyone to a super-duper high-tech fantasy internet called the Chiral Network. An internet supposed to be so strong it can make people reconnect with each other without having to leave the safety of their shelters. To accomplish this goal, Sam has to deliver packages to the many remaining shelters of the country. Said deliveries help earn the trust of the people, and in turn, this unlocks new gadgets and new ways for Sam to continue doing his job. And he needs every little bit of help, because as I said, the outside world is so deadly that couriers and delivery services have become as valuable as gold. And that's the short version of it. The core of Death Stranding is making deliveries for people, but each and every one of those deliveries is an entire adventure in itself. Despite what many believe, you are not going to reach your destination by simply holding the forward button. Every single element of your delivery counts, from the hazards you face along the way to gravity itself, to even the cargo you carry with you. Let's start with the cargo. In an amazing twist I have yet to see fully replicated in other games, the inventory is non-existent in this game, at least not in the traditional sense. Everything you carry with you, from delivery cargo to weapons and accessories to make your life easier, take up space in your backpack or on your suit. The more things you carry, the heavier you become, and with the more weight you have, you begin to move a lot slower. You even begin to lose balance as you walk forward, so you have to pay attention to where you are walking, and you always have to keep your fingers on the balancing button, otherwise you will fall and your cargo will get damaged. This means you are going to be doing a lot of inventory management. You want to make a balance between how many packages you wish to deliver versus how many tools you want to carry with you, and finding that balance marks the big difference between a smooth journey and a complete disaster. Later on, you get to unlock utility pouches, and while those liberate a lot of space in your backpack, they also bring another layer of inventory management, because you want to know exactly what you want to take with you. This then takes us into the terrain itself. Unlike what happens in many other games, every texture you walk on is different. The angle of the hills, the depth of the water, even the little rocks can have an impact on your mobility. Some can easily trip on wet floors or with rocks, so you have to know when to run and when to walk. Because Sam is human, this means the terrain you walk through will tire him out. Steep hills, climbing, even holding onto his backpack to maintain balance spends precious stamina. You need to be constantly keeping an eye on it, and to decide when to catch your breath or when to take a sip of your canteen to regain your strength. Here is where your tools start making a major difference in how you do your deliveries. You can use ladders to climb through cliffs, or as improvised bridges to cross water easier. You can use climbing anchors to safely rappel or scale through places to hide for the ladders. And later on, you can start building major structures that can shave entire minutes of your journey. A little more on that later. I mentioned shaving minutes of your deliveries because in this post-apocalyptic America, the weather is hazardous. The rain, the rivers, and even the snow can quickly deteriorate your equipment and cargo. The longer time you spend in hostile weather, the more damage your stuff receives, and the more problem it creates when you make your deliveries. You cannot turn in destroyed cargo. This is why you want to prioritize the best route possible, because otherwise you risk entering one of the two major hostile territories in the game, mule/terrorist camps and BT territories. The former are cargo thieves. If they detect you or your cargo, they will home in on you and will actively try to take you down so they can steal everything you have. In the case of the terrorists, they will even go out of their way to try and kill you with their guns. Your best means of defense against them is either grenades or just beating them up. But they are not pushovers. They can and they will overwhelm an unprepared player. While the game can give you the tools to defend yourself and even kill them, it is not advisable to do this. Because of the titular Death Stranding, dead bodies attract BTs, and dealing with them or their territory is where Death Stranding starts leaning harder into the horror genre. BTs are invisible creatures that come from the game's afterlife. What makes them dangerous is that if they catch you and eat you, it will cause a void out, which is basically a nuclear explosion, one that can permanently ruin the area of effect and turn it into a heavier hotspot for more BTs to appear. Early in the game, you can't really do much against them except sneak past them. They become visible only if they are in range of you stop moving, and you can only truly sneak past them by being silent, and that includes holding your breath. Extra care is needed when dealing with BT territory, because getting detected by them will get you attacked, and if a BT gets a hold of you, you will get dragged to a miniboss arena where you either fight the BT trying to eat you, or escape while you can, unless you want to risk dying and making the territory permanently more dangerous. This makes encountering BTs a very terrifying and adrenaline-pumping experience. You need to wait for the right window to defend yourself, either with grenades, blood-coated bullets, or with stealth takedowns. Another hazard that comes with the BT territory is the rain. In Death Stranding, rain has become timefall. Anything the water touches quickly ages up and degrades. This includes delivery packages, player constructions, vehicles, and other human beings. So when you are in BT territory with heavy rain, the encounters also become a race against time, because the longer you stay in the rain, the faster your inventory will degrade, and there is potential for your cargo to get damaged. Using the weather as a hostile force against the player is something I don't see done in games too often, and in this game it makes things 100% more atmospheric, with some very memorable gameplay moments like being lost in the mountains during a blizzard, not being able to see in front of you, and having to carefully watch your step, as you never know if you are actually going in the correct path or you're about to fall down a slope unto your death. So no matter what you do in this game, you are always facing small gameplay challenges, and getting a few likes and fanfares for overcoming them makes them all the more satisfying to go through, especially when you are fighting bosses. At certain points in the story, the game is going to throw major battles at you, either by fighting BTs in a larger scale game where the floor is lava, and by time traveling back to major historical wars, where you have to face the ghost of fallen soldiers led by Mads Mikkelsen. I love these fights a lot personally because they make for a nice spice up for the overall gameplay. In the former, you have to play smart, finding high ground so you can have a fighting chance, and if you manage to run out of ammo, you have to take a risk and scavenge for some, while facing the risk of getting eaten by the bigger BTs. In the case of the latter, it gives you an excuse to finally let loose and use whatever little weaponry you may have with you. Since the ghost soldiers are already dead, there is no penalty for shooting them. And it also makes for a fun two-way game of cat and mouse, hiding from soldiers chasing you so you have a way to fire back at them, or hunting them down one by one as you try to down their commander. They're not the most challenging thing in the world, but they are fun nonetheless, and fun is always what I look for in games. Another aspect I appreciate about this game is how, despite having a number of tools at your disposal to potentially break the game, there is no absolute dominant strategy. There are a number of deliveries that you will have to complete in a specific way, so you will end up changing your playstyle often. There are some deliveries that require you to carry so many packages that you will need to load them into your bike. Sometimes the bike itself may not be enough and you will have to use a truck, because the delivery itself is several times Sam's weight. Some deliveries even need to be made by hand, so you then have to rely on whatever structures are there to make on-foot navigation easier. Even the highways have their own catch. Sure, they are perfectly flat roads you can use to get from point A to point B without facing major obstacles. But, much like with the world map itself, there is not a single straight line. It's full of curves, ups and downs, so you need to be careful while driving, especially if you are driving near hostile territory. But here is where one particular game mechanic made me love this game. I know a lot of the stuff I'm describing here sounds very overwhelming and I like a lot of busy work, but this is the game changer: the online mechanic. See, Death Stranding may be mostly a single-player game, but its themes of reconnecting America through the use of the internet also applies to your connection to other players. And this means Death Stranding is a very subtle co-op game, where players are helping each other and supporting each other through the online element. As you travel through the world of Death Stranding, you can see structures and roads other players have built. Remember the highways I mentioned? They are useful and convenient to use for traveling, but they are also very expensive, and the building costs only grow bigger and bigger the more you are trying to build them, and you can only take so much material from the many shelters you make deliveries to. So to get them built, players online can donate their own share of materials to complete construction, and any player within that particular regional server gets to enjoy the benefits of something everyone worked together to build. This extends to other structures as well. There is a good chance you are going to find a ladder, a bridge, a climbing rope, a zip line, or an abandoned vehicle left by another player for you to use. And the same is said for the things you set up yourself. This means that you are indeed helping each other out. Every structure already built by other players is an inventory space you can use to carry more delivery cargo. And the best part is, players can give you likes, and the game itself notifies you if other players have used your structure. And that just feels very good if you set it up in a high transit area, because it means you made someone else's life a lot easier. And since we are on about the online stuff and the likes, let's talk about the likes. The like system in this game is basically no different from how you give likes on social media. It's a bunch of free serotonin for your brain, because it feels good that people are reacting positively to your actions. Even the quirky little signs you can leave along the way net you likes. But is there an actual use to the likes you get paid for completing deliveries or getting them from other players? Actually, there is. The number of likes you have actually determine how well connected you are to the online servers. The more likes you have, the more player structures you can see, and the more player stuff you can see online, the more easier things get for you. Also, the number of likes you get from completing deliveries help level up your star rating with the many shelters you deliver things to. The main incentive, and largely the true mark of 100% completion, is achieving 5-star for every shelter you visit. This may look like a silly little bragging rights thing, but much like the likes and the online system, it has a practical use. Getting survivors to join the internet means the chiral network expands. That expansion is what allows you to both see player structures and build your own. So you can't really just spam zip lines or bridges. They cost both materials and bandwidth, and you have to know when and where to place them. So you are still doing resource management and needed to play it smart if you plan to 100% complete the game. I like that. I always like games that make me think and play smart. Lateral thinking is a beautiful form of art, and I will forever sing for it as a gamer. I know I just spent over 2500 words singing praises for this game so far, so to make things a little more fair, I'm going to talk some negatives, because as much of a Kojima fanboy as I am not immune to BS. One major negative for this game that I am sure a lot of people will get scared of by simply pointing it out is if you decide to 100% complete the game or do the majority of the open world stuff, this game becomes a time sink. And the worst offender of it all is the star system. Getting a lot of likes to level up ASAP means you want to make multiple deliveries at the same time to the same place in order to maximize your profits and get faster towards the 5-star rating. But getting there from 3 stars onwards can be painful, especially with the distribution centers. This gets mitigated somewhat if you decide to make premium deliveries, which is this game's version of the challenge mode. This more or less doubles the number of likes you receive, but even doing those can make those stars move at a snail's pace. This makes the game start to fall dangerously close into tedium territory, especially because some shelters are in some rather ridiculous places, and some of the deliveries for the shelters can be located on the other side of the map. A number of shelters are not needed to complete the story, but in order to unlock them as delivery points, you have to make at least one delivery for them. But because they are not part of the network or relevant to the story, it means the only way to get them is by finding the lost cargo and bringing it to them. That's a whole other mechanic I forgot to mention. Along your travels, you will find random cargo addressed to the many shelters in the game world. They are good if you are looking to rack up more likes, but they are also randomized. So if you are looking for that one particular package that you can deliver to a new shelter, well, guess what? It's a matter of luck. So you can explore the map for quite a while looking for that lost cargo, and this just becomes a test of patience I really don't like. Made worse if you are in the middle of the delivery and you may not have space to carry them with you, or to make that detour to said shelters. And the time thing also applies to your player structures. True to how it can happen in real life, leaving a structure, a vehicle, or anything at the mercy of the elements is going to inevitably cause it to rust and decay, until eventually it's not usable anymore. This mechanic isn't new really. The resource degradation is something Kojima has been using as early as MGS3. The good thing is that structures, roads, and everything else take a while to actually start degrading, and you can expand their lifespan either by fixing them or by using resources to upgrade them. So sooner or later, namely towards the end of the game, you are going to be spammed with notifications about how stuff is deteriorating. So this means having to take a special journey to repair and upgrade every structure you can, or just wait for the game to keep pestering you about them until they finally disappear. But as I said, this happens just as you are making your way to wrap up the game. Other players can fix your structures for you. And of course, this only becomes apparent if you go out of your way to linger around certain areas in order to max them out. So I'll say it's a good thing that you can mostly just focus on the main story deliveries and worry about the side content later, if at all. You even stand to gain more from that, as advancing the story unlocks more and more better equipment for Sam to use. And you can use that to turn the side content I complain about into something a lot better to enjoy. It should speak volumes about the game that burnout didn't set in for me until I was 5 shelters short of 100% completing the game. By that point, I got all the fun I needed to get out of it, so I will argue the game and its plot fulfilled their purpose. Speaking of the plot, for those who don't know, Hideo Kojima is a game director known mostly for the Metal Gear franchise. A series of games known for having some really good stealth gameplay mixed with some mostly deep socio-political commentary, spiced up with soldiers with superpowers and giant mecha robots. He is also known for being a rather quirky writer. The thing about Kojima's stories is that they are actually pretty straightforward, but his particular quirk is how said stories have many layers to them. And this convolutes the plot because characters have this remarkable habit of going into multiple tangents while talking to your main character. And in some of the worst cases, tangents lead into tangents about other tangents. And I don't blame anyone who gets lost after watching only the first major conversation between two characters. In the case of Death Stranding, the story is not too complicated in general. The world was destroyed by a series of atomic explosions from the world of the dead leaking into our world, leaving only a handful of people left. Sam's goal is to help restore America by establishing a communications network that will let society recover from all this mess from the comfort of their shelters, since the outside world is so sadistically hostile. And all of this becomes more and more complicated as characters reveal their backstories, motivations, twists and turns, and telling you the technobubble mixed with real-life science to explain and justify all the crazy gamey stuff you can pull. Some will likely get put off by this and write it off as a bunch of nonsense, and trust me, I am only covering the basics. I could spend hours talking about the intricate details of this plot. But for me, this kind of spotty, messy writing that has the subtlety of a punch to the face is just perfect for a video game. The bigger reason I enjoy this kind of messy storytelling is because making sense of this train wreck is an entire game of its own. Putting together all the pieces and even looking at what other people understood from it, so when you watch some cutscenes or replay the game, you go, "Oh, so that's what happened." It's still not perfect, and I understand if someone will dismiss Kojima as being full of himself or just being pretentious because he watches a lot of movies. But for me, this is part of the charm. The true magic of art is how the artist uses it to express themselves, and the overcomplicated stories Kojima tells only show you that by the end of the day, the man is just human, like you and me, and that's why I enjoy his work so much. To make a very long story short, Death Stranding is a fantastic game. Not everyone is going to enjoy it, and I understand that. And that's okay really. Acquired tastes are like that. This game offers something different both in game mechanics, themes, and overall structure. This is why I am more than happy to give Death Stranding a nearly perfect 9 out of 10. We really need more games to get out of their comfort zone and take risks, to give us different experiences and keep this hobby fresh. Considering how much the AAA factory normalized releasing the same games over and over again, I am more than happy to embrace this brand of different. Thankfully, more games have come out in this Stranding genre of games, and I am very excited to play them. I also feel this game shouldn't get a sequel. Let it stand on its own. Let Kojima get out of the cycle of creating franchises with so many sequels that he gets an inevitable burnout. And here he started production on a horror game, and I can only look forward to see what he has to offer. If the castle Silent Hills and the creepier moments of Death Stranding are indication of anything, is that we might be in for a treat in the future.